So I'm wearing a shirt, TCB logo, picked up at Graceland during my our aborted cross-country drive recently. Graceland, fantastic when there's a pandemic right on the cusp of exploding and there's nobody there. No lines, no waiting. It was great. It was like being in the house alone. Are you in the house alone? At any rate, I'm here to talk about a movie, one of my favorite movies, period. An Elvis movie. It's called Elvis, That's the Way It Is, from 1970. This, I've always sort of half joked, is like Elvis's Let It Be. Very similar in many ways. Elvis, That's the Way It Is a documentary released by MGM in 1970, as I said, that chronicles the gearing up and then the performance of the Elvis debut in Las Vegas in 1969. Now, he had played Vegas before this. He played Vegas in the 50s, did not do well. Kept him away from Vegas for a long time. The degree that he was not accepted in Vegas, he was like, you know, I'm cool with the desert for a while. He went after the comeback special in 1968 when he was suddenly a musician again that was in high demand and ready to perform again. He went in 68 and did a series of concerts in Vegas. And then that was really his return to Vegas. If you didn't know any better when you watched That's the Way It Is, you would think the level of nerves he has and preparation he's putting into this show that this was his return, but it wasn't. He'd been there the year before. So basically the story of this film, documentary, is you see Elvis at MGM Studios where he was still under contract to make movies for about another year. And then you see him on a soundstage with musicians rehearsing for this show because he knew MGM was going to shoot it for a movie and he needed to learn a lot of songs for it. So he's nervous, he's joking around with the band, they're playing old 50s tunes, they're playing contemporary songs, they're messing around. Then you see him in Las Vegas at the Las Vegas Hilton, or the International Hotel. It was, I called it at the time of this film, then it became the Las Vegas Hilton, and now it's the Westgate. He's with his band, he's with the backup singers, and he's working on arrangements or working with them. You see a little bit of him at MGM, the studios and the offices at MGM, which is kind of cool if you're a film fan. And then ultimately you get the show. So basically it's chronological, which is, again, sort of like Let It Be. The idea with Let It Be was it was going to see the Beatles writing, rehearsing songs, recording them, and then doing a live show at the end. This is the same thing on a much grander scale. And I've always wondered if That's the Way It Is in any way was inspired by Let It Be or what they were hearing about Let It Be being made. Both films were released the same year, or if it was just a coincidence. So the film bops back and forth between Elvis and some interviews with fans and some people who work at the International, and it builds this tremendous sense of excitement to the point where the 2001 theme, Thus Spake Zarathustra, swells with the orchestra, the curtains part, and he walks out in the white jumpsuit and he just blows everybody away. Once the show starts, that's all you're looking at. You don't jump back and forth anymore. For me, this is my father was an Elvis fan, so I grew up with Elvis in the house, so to speak, and I always appreciated the music. But once I saw this movie, That's the Way It Is, and heard the music, I just sort of determined this is my favorite moment in Elvis's history because he looks fantastic. He's in great physical shape. His voice is outstanding, and the music he was doing at this point, it had that country-esque vibe, that country rock vibe to it, that lilt that was very of the period. It was very kind of 1969, 1970. You see him do those new songs. You see him do his classics, which he kind of speeds through. And if you follow Elvis live, right up to the end, he would basically take the 50s Uber hits and make them a medley and go real fast through them. He's like, okay, they need to hear these things. We're going to go through these things. And then you hear him do a lot of covers. And for me, the covers he does in this film, he does Bridge Over Troubled Water. He does... God, you think I would know because I Just Can't Help Believin', which is one of my favorite Elvis songs, period. He does Words, the Bee Gees tune, and a few other things. I think he does Get Back at some point too. The movie and the album are slightly different. The record album was a mix of studio tracks and live tracks from the movie. It was subsequently has been released several times on CD with full shows. They basically filmed did audio recordings of a series of shows in Vegas. He would do 2 or 3 shows a night. It would be like 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock, and midnight. Many of those were recorded. In the film, what you see is actually a mix of shows at the International in Vegas and shows he did right close by to that time period at an auditorium in Arizona. And you can tell that the background changes and his jumpsuit changes a little bit, but the performance level is equal. He's very funny and silly. He jokes around with the band a lot. one of my favorite moments in the film, and one of the most amazing things that, like, it blows your mind that somebody of his caliber would do this, and the idea that anybody would do this now, is that during one song, he just gets off the stage, he climbs down off the stage, and he just walks through the crowd, like shaking hands and saying hello to people while the band continues to play, and then he gets back up on stage and continues. And you would think people would have torn him apart, because the audience is rabid. These are people who have been Elvis fans, for a decade at that point. The people who were teenagers when he first hit in the 50s are now these 20-somethings, maybe 30-somethings, and they're still rabid for him. The women are still screaming. They're still crying and losing their stuff. And it's just amazing to see the crowd. Maybe they were just all stunned. Maybe they couldn't believe what they were seeing, and they just didn't think to grab at him or anything. I'm sure nobody wanted to hurt the guy, but still. So it's an amazing moment. The performance is outstanding. The behind the scenes stuff is fascinating, just to see how somebody like him would work at a song and tweak it a little and make it what you finally see live. And the orchestration is phenomenal. You had an orchestra, you had his band who were great, you had a male chorus and a female chorus, gospel singers who really could hit those notes and soar, and then you had the guy up front. And it was just phenomenal. So this is a film that I love. It's available in various formats. I do want to say a little bit more about it. So it was released theatrically. It came out on videotape. It came out on DVD. Came out again on DVD, and there was something called a special edition. I think it was in 2001. It was briefly theatrical and then went on video, and I believe the Blu-ray has both of these. The original film, as I said, it cuts between fans and behind the scenes and ramping up to the show and cutting in little comments from people and Elvis and what he's doing and rehearsing and performing. The special edition focuses on him. It's a re-edit of the film. They went back to the raw footage and the raw audio tracks. They beefed up the sound and image quality, and it's a different version of the film. It's not just tacking a little on here and there like Star Wars special editions or tweaking things. It's taking people out of the movie. You don't see the guy who works in the kitchen talking anymore. You don't see the fans. You don't go to England to look at a fan gathering and see a cover band of Elvis. It's just him. So you get more music than the original film had. You have different camera angles. You have a lot more focus on Elvis and the band as opposed to people in the audience reacting. And it's a really cool way to experience this film in a different way. If you care more just about the music and seeing the performance, the special edition of That's the Way It Is actually kind of what I would recommend. If you want a great snapshot of the time period, I think the theatrical version of That's the Way It Is the preferable one. And if you're like me and you're a huge fan of the guy and the music and this movie, you get two versions of the movie. It's like the Richard Donner cut of Superman 2. A lot of it's the same movie you saw before, a lot of it's different, and wow, now you can choose which version of this film that's great that you want to watch. So Elvis, That's the Way It Is. It's available now. It's my favorite Elvis movie. It's one of my favorite movies, period. If you're a rock fan, it's very interesting to watch. If you're on the fence about Elvis and you're not quite sure, this is the movie to give a shot. Don't watch his Hollywood films. Viva Las Vegas is fun, and the music is good, and Anne Margaret's great, but it could be viewed as a little cheesy now. If you really want to see this guy, to me at his prime, I would take a look at Elvis, That's the Way It Is.